Well, good evening, everyone. That was a fun end to that game, wasn't it? So, James the wine drinker and myself, HG, are here this evening, partly to share our annoyance of what we just seen, but also kind of to hear what you thought, because obviously we're not party to the post-match interviews. We don't really know what's going to be said. Certainly, I don't, because the German coverage is finished. But so please let us know. Where do we start? James, hi. How are you?
Hi, I've been at the pub watching the game with my friend who is not a football fan, he's a rugby fan. And next to me was a Man United fan. And I'm going to be honest, when the second goal that was disallowed went in, I screamed very loudly and knocked over my own pint before it was disallowed. And I left the pub entirely. So, bit of 50-50. We'll go with that.
Yeah, so wait, so Spurs don't score a goal that probably should have been given, and you lost a pint. I mean, the only good thing there is the fact that you were able to get here to do this.
Yeah,
you weren't downing a pint in 10 seconds flat just to get back.
It was a good pint as well. It was Stormerpramen, however you say it. Good pint.
Yeah.
I sank 6 of those tonight. Good pint. Damn good pint.
I should imagine Antonio Conte is going to have a couple before the day's out as well. But, okay, so should we just skip the first half? Because it was pretty poor, wasn't it?
Oh, fuck me.
First
half.
Go on.
It's one of the worst halves of Spurs I've seen in a long ass time. I thought we started kind of okay, but it's just awful. Slow, way too slow. I said on the group chat at halftime, someone's got to come off. We've got to make a change. It's just too bloody slow. I was getting frustrated in the pub. It's just not good enough. But that's the first half over. Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Do you think that was down to the fact that we went 3-4-3 again, or what do you think the first half malaise was down to?
I don't know. It was just the passing was too slow. We had a couple decent moves. We had a couple half chances. I don't think we were playing horrendously, but it's almost as if we almost had an inbuilt sensor to just pass it too slow. It's like they had all just woken up 10 minutes ago and they were a bit not there yet.
No, I mean, you're saying that, like, I thought we were horrific in the first half. Like, not only, like, again, I don't think Sporting played well. Just like the first game, I don't think Sporting are any good whatsoever. They have a couple of decent players and they know their roles, but that's about it. And yet, first half, we didn't want the ball. We didn't want to get the ball. We just, when we had the ball, it was also slow. There was no movement up front. Like playing Lucas in a 3-4-3, I've never liked it, but if there's no movement, there is no point. Yeah. Like there's no point moving if the ball gets played to someone else. You've got to move before the ball is played. You've got to give those midfielders and centre backs options to play it forward. And in the first half, we just didn't. And so again, like Marcus Edwards scored. It was not a great goal from he didn't hit it particularly well. It snaked into the corner. You think that? I mean, I still think Hugo probably could and should have done better, even though it was right in the corner. It just felt like it was going to be one of those nights where Spurs didn't really understand what was at stake. And we know that, 3 points would have seen us qualify. And so to play half the game as if it was a kickabout with your mates in front of a bunch of, unsuspecting public was just, that's unforgivable.
We had one decent moment in the first half when Moura went through. And I remember my mate who was sat next to me, Sam, who's, again, a rugby fan. He has very little understanding of football beyond watching England games. Unfortunately for him, he's an England fan. And he said to me, why didn't that bloke just chip it instead of trying to go round him? And I'm sat there kind of thinking, well, on one hand, it's very difficult. It's kind of hard to chip a player. But at the same point, you've half got a point, haven't you? Because had Moura scored there, very similar to Son against Newcastle, in the position of the chance, we go 1-0 up, we win the game.
Yeah, it seems very Spurs, doesn't it? Like the first goal is super important, like because you don't want to give teams the chance to sit back and counter against us because we don't have any pace in the side. We're not a threat going forward, really. And I mean, let's be honest. Even in the second half, it felt like I was watching kids' football at times. Everyone just running towards the ball. There's no composure anywhere in the side. We're just going to try and get the ball. And we were running more, so we were dominating and we were getting most of the second balls. But even when we had it, there was no quality on the pitch. There was, Bentancur, I still think was probably our best player, and not just because he got the equaliser, but generally speaking, I talked about how Sporting knew their positions and they knew their roles. It looks like Spurs don't. it looks like we know what we're being told to do, but if we can't do it, we just look around as if someone else has got to somehow do something as an individual, and we don't have enough of those players in our side that can do that. So, yeah, all right. What have we got? We've got a few comments. Let's go to comments. The first one, what score? It finished 1-1. Although Spurs scored 2 goals, it did finish 1-1. We've got this comment about the semi-automated VAR. Is that for the World Cup? Is that now? None of us really know what rules are being involved right now. They've clearly got a couple of assistant referees who are watching things. But the next comment here about it taking 3 minutes to decide. Yeah, it's weird. When I saw the first replay, and the angle wasn't great, but you thought, okay, that's closer than you want it to be. Kane looked in line at best, probably at worst, however you wanted to say it. But when it's headed backwards, this is my thing. If it's headed backwards, it doesn't matter anymore, right? The ball was played towards Kane by a Sporting player, not by one of our players. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's the key part, right? Shall we just end it now? That is surely how this needs to end. But, I mean, how much better were we in the second half, James? What do you think?
Second half, night and day. There was the quality wasn't always there, but there was an intensity we haven't seen from Spurs since last season. It seemed like the players knew what they were trying to do in the second half. We were getting forward. We were much quicker on our passing. We still had some of that differing about at the back, passing it back, but we weren't going back to Hugo anywhere near as much. We seemed like we had much more intensity in the second half. It's almost as if Conte gave all of them a bit of speed, and they were way more up for it. We went from Blues to Motörhead in about during the second half, first half, second half. That's what it felt like.
Yeah,
we were a lot better. We still lack quality, but if we played every game like we did in the second half, every game, we wouldn't have dropped points in all of them. Had we played like that the entire game, we'd have won. We played a lot better in the second half.
It's interesting. I feel like in the first half, the only player we had in their half was Kane, pretty much most of the time. And in the second half, the only player we had in our half was Dyer. And everyone else was pushed forward, and we were trying to... again, I think a better side than Sporting would have punished us on the break. I mean, we weren't... I don't believe we were any good. It was kind of like you get those fans who are desperate to see Spurs run around a bit and show some passion. And that's what we did. We ran around a lot, we showed some passion, but there was still so little quality on the ball, so little idea as a team or as individuals. I mean, obviously at some point, I think it was about 15 minutes to go, Sporting brought on a centre half, and you knew they were going to play for whatever they could. They were going to hold on to what they had. And even then, I mean, it was a corner that got the equaliser, terrible goalkeeping, and Bentancur jumped really high, to be fair to him. Like he hung in the air when it came across. But I just, as much as I'm annoyed that Spurs aren't in the last 16, and we really should be, right? I can't get over the fact of how poor we were and how little there seems to be. We brought on Brian Hill. Obviously, that made a massive difference. And Lucas went to right wing back, and I was like, okay, well, we're being a bit more attacking. We took Doherty off, and then we get the equaliser. And what does he do? He brings on Longley and Emerson Royal. And you're thinking, what were you thinking at that point? Same as me, most likely.
Yeah, right. I'm going to be honest. I thought Gill was a tremendous. He actually played quite well. I thought he injected a lot of energy that's been missing since Kulusevski's been out. I mean, he's not quite got the end product, but he always seems like he wants to do something. He's always got that purpose on the ball, which is really important. I'm thinking it's 1-1, and I see Longley warming up. I'm just like, again, I turn to my mate and I just say, why the fuck's he bringing on a centre back? Like, Conte, mate, we're chasing the game. I get we haven't got a lot of options on the bench, but even if he throws on Bissouma, I think, well, he's going to run forward. Why is he bringing on Longley? Sessegnon, or whatever, I get. Emerson, I'm going to be honest, I turned to the guys behind me who are Barcelona fans. I kid you not, in Portsmouth, Barcelona fans. And I say, how the hell is this bloke a professional football player? And the guy just looked at me, laughed and said, I don't know, mate. He's awful.
I mean, we need to have people like that on our show more. That's quality. Quality is... I know that we've got a show and people are watching, Let's have a look at this is what Louise Gillard has said. I'm in America, had a ref on to explain it. At the moment, Emerson hits the ball, not the moment of release 2 frames later. Kane was ruled offside. Apparently, direction of the ball is now irrelevant. Was that? I mean, granted, no offense to any Americans watching. The joke is obviously in Europe that Americans don't know the rules of football. If that's a change, then that's insane. Like if you get to the byline and you cross the ball and it's deflected from one of their players into, like, suddenly you can be offside. I just like the thing is, if they're looking at it as an offside decision and they've got the lines out, and we've talked about the lines various times, and they think, okay, you can say like Kane's right toe is slightly ahead of Emerson's left earlobe or whatever you want to say, but when you know that it can't be based on that. I mean, they disallowed it for that reason. That's what came up in the stadium on the screen. I was party to that. But when the ball goes backwards, like, it only goes to Kane because of the sporting player. Emerson's header isn't good enough to get it to Kane. We have no idea what he was even attempting to do, but it wasn't going to Kane. The only way it went there was because of the sporting player. You could even say that it came off the sporting player's hand. I thought that might have been involved. That would have been a soft penalty. There's no doubt about it. But I don't understand. I think there was a comment about the people in I guess BT Sport were talking about how they can't understand it, and I saw a quick clip on Twitter about Eric Dyer asking the ref's like, well, he was offside, and Dyer's like, well, how can he be offside if the ball goes backwards? So this is clearly going to run a little bit, and because Conte was sent off as well, you suspect it's like, well, what happens if UEFA decide to rescind the red card? But obviously they can't rescind the poor decision. And like, weirdly enough, this feels like the only occasion in football history where like you could rescind it and the game's over, right? Like it changes the result of the game, but it doesn't stop the Sporting from coming back and getting a last second fluke. The game is done. It's just, I mean, I know there are conspiracy theorists who believe that VAR is out there to kind of manipulate the games, not just, cause it to be a better spectacle and get more decisions right, but also to get the decisions you want. And it's clear from a UEFA's perspective, they want both games next week to have something on it, right? I mean, that's what happened. That's where we now are. But please, people who are watching and commenting, tell us, like, what are we missing something? Is there something we don't know about? Because what's the point of spending 60 quid to go and watch football?
I think I've clocked it. I think whoever the VAR ref today, he's obviously had a few too many fucking drinks. He was at the pub with me. He was obviously sat behind me on his laptop or something. I don't understand it. Honestly.
Probably that rugby supporting friend of yours. He was side gigging as the VAR for tonight's game.
It wouldn't fucking surprise me, the quality of officiating in UEFA and the Premier League. This is another problem though. There are different rules in VAR for UEFA games and Premier League games. There's not consistency.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think someone in UEFA sat there with a tin hat on going, oh yes, we'll make sure Spurs don't win this game so the next match is important in Marseille. I think it's just because someone's fucking incompetent, if I'm honest. They've made a shit decision. I mean, never underestimate the ability of humans to be shit at their job.
But I mean, aren't there a couple? That's very true. But anyway, but aren't there two of them? Aren't there two assistants? I firmly said for a long time that if you need the lines, leave it alone, right? If you can't tell with the naked eye from a replay, leave it alone. And had they done that, you wouldn't have known, right? There was no way to know for certain without getting your arbitrary lines out that Kane was offside. I mean, like,
I think
go on.
The thing with offside, right, and this is, my thing on offside, is the point is to prevent players from having an unfair advantage by standing meters in front of the back line, right? If it's centimeters, how is that really an advantage? My argument has always been there should be a margin with offside. It should be at least a meter, or not a meter, but half a meter. It should be quite clear, right? And this is what my friend who's a rugby fan said to me. If it's half a centimeter or whatever bollocks, how is that an advantage? How have you gained an advantage in that position? Therefore, the rule is kind of bollocks, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I mean, we even have like offside is itself. Like when I was a kid, before you were born, James, like you had to be behind, like in front of the last defender. Like level was offside, right? And then they decided they wanted to help the attackers. So at this point, they've now changed it again, but it doesn't help the attackers. Like, so what are you trying to do? Just like, make it so that it isn't subjective? Well, clearly it is, because when you choose to draw the lines matters. And so, yeah, you're right. Having a buffer would kind of take away this, like, when is the ball played? Is it when it hits his foot, or is it when it leaves his foot? Because if you're doing it at 60 frames a second, there's a good 30 frames in that. I mean, it is absolutely crazy that the Champions League, with all the money that's involved, like, I mean, granted, we're sitting here as Spurs fans, clearly it affects us, right? And like, I can't sit here and say we deserve to have gone through, right? Because we didn't play well tonight. We got a bit fortunate. Yeah, we ran around a lot, but like, overall, we won one home game because the player, Marseille had a player sent off. Our away results haven't been great. What, a 0-0 in Frankfurt, and we lost it in Lisbon. So there's very little to say that Spurs have been the best team in the group, which, had the goal been given, we'd have gone through as first. We'd have been the best team in the group. So I just, I don't want to give them, a reason to get out of this. But like, Spurs are where we are because of what we've done, right? And had we played the first half with any intensity, had we really shown any, like, even when after we equalised, had we just gone for it a bit more and kept the same players on the pitch, then maybe something could have happened. But I just, it feels, I mean, like, I'm not one to blame the refs. I'm really not. But right now, it feels like that's the only solution for tonight, because any other game, we win the game 2-1. As bad as we played, we've scored 2 goals, so we deserve to win.
I mean, in the second half, we played a lot better. There were lapses of quality missing where a Maddison type play would very much help, but we showed intensity, we showed purpose. We looked like we knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to go forward with the ball. We wanted to get the ball in the box. We wanted to create chances. That's the Spurs we've been missing since last season. That Spurs wins that game if you play like all game. Yeah, horrific officiating. Okay, we didn't play well all game, but it was a poor goal to concede in the first place. We weren't horrendous the entire first half. We did create a chance. I mean, if Mora chips it over the keeper and we go 1-0 up, right, we still win the game. Okay, we weren't brilliant. Okay, we were bad away at Sporting, and I got quite pissed off about that. But again, we scored 2 goals that were probably fine. I mean, if you have to get fucking lines out and do it like a fucking geometry exam to measure whether or not the guy had his fucking earlobe half a millimeter offside, it's fine. It's a perfectly fine goal. How's that an advantage? Right, it's the same thing with a hand, right? If his arm's offside, you can't fucking score with your arm, can you? Why does that matter? Yeah, it should have been allowed. I don't know. It could just be because I was watching in the pub. It could be because I've had a few drinks, but I don't see a reason why it's disallowed. And I don't know. We didn't play brilliantly. Second half was much better. That Spurs, whatever Conte said to them, he needs to say to them before every game. I don't know whether he has like blackmail on them. I don't know if he just really amped them up. I don't know if they took fucking meth or something, but they need to be like that every game, because that was the Spurs that's been lacking for a while. Yes, it should have ended 2-1. Hell, it should have ended 3 or 4-1 with the chances we created. Had the crosses been a bit better, Here
we go. Right, so our resident Eintracht fan, Rainer, should have been allowed. There you go. Right? Germans know football.
Sober perspective.
That's exactly. Germans know football. It should have been allowed. I mean, like, and I'm not being funny. This is the type of thing that Spurs aren't going to let go. Like, if we don't get the result we need next week, and I'm looking at the table now, I think we only need a point in France. But if we don't get the result we need to go through, then this is a massive, massive moment that will cost the club, not huge amounts of millions, but certainly millions of pounds to get through to the next stage. And I don't think we're going to let that one go so easily. It's not going to be like, we made a mistake, sorry. Like, the whole point of VAR is that you don't make mistakes. Like, subjective things can be one thing or another, but I don't think that's subjective. If the law says that in this case he counts as being offside, even though it didn't come off our player to go forward, then fair enough. I would hate that rule, but you can't argue with it if that's what the rule says. But I'd be very, very surprised if they've changed it. I mean, it would be typical Spurs to be the first ones to fall foul of anything. But that would be just, I mean, as Kerry says here, right? Liverpool would have been given it. Probably. Yeah, I mean, like the history of getting decisions that Spurs don't have. We didn't get one in the Champions League final. You just think at some point common sense needs to prevail, and there isn't any in football, really. It's all about, it's got to be black or white. It's got to be by the book, and the book will cover all eventualities until you find out it doesn't, and then the book gets rewritten. I just, again, Kerry's talking about all the money involved. Like, is it in UEFA's interest to have next week be two massive games? Of course it is, right? And we've got, a German side, an English side, a French side, massive markets that are involved in this game that, had we gone through and we'd won the game, they'd be playing for second place next week. I'm no conspiracy theorist. I don't want to be that person. But it is absolutely mental. I mean, again, Phil makes the point here. Did you watch the West Ham game on Monday night, James? No? Like, there was clearly some kind of handball. I think when I saw the replay, it kind of hits the West Ham player and goes in a forward motion to another player before it goes in. And it looks like he almost kind of like reacts to it and almost like volleyballs it towards a player without really meaning to. But that was a clear handball as far as I was concerned, and it wasn't given. And tonight's, like, consistency is a difficult thing to get. I understand that. You've got different referees interpreting the rules differently. As awful as that sounds, I kind of understand that. But this is not an interpretation of the rule, right? Like, either he's offside and it doesn't matter that it came off a Sporting player, or if it does matter, then he's not offside. He could be standing next to the keeper. He could be standing behind the keeper. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to yell. I'm going to be calm. Spurs, I'm not going to do this to me again.
It's fine. I can be the loud, shouty one because I don't
do it. Do it.
Well, look, bottom fucking line, the officiating. Shit, I've had better officiating in Sunday League when I was a little scrawny 14-year-old, 15-year-old with a man bun wearing a Wales Gareth Bale shirt, which I will be pulling out for the World Cup. I hope you're glad to know, HG. Definitely. And I will be walking into a bunch of pubs filled with Pompey fans with my 6'3" mate, who's a Scotland fan, and he'll have a Scottish flag wrapped around himself, and I'll have a Welsh flag wrapped around myself, so if I end up with bruises on my face, you know why. Bottom line, shit decision. Fucking horrific decision. What can you say? I mean, I could go off an angry tirade about the corruption in UEFA, which we all know fucking exists. Read the FBI reports. It exists in FIFA, and UEFA. I mean, those only scratch the surface. We know it runs deep. Let's not pretend like it doesn't exist. It does exist. The World Cup's being held in fucking Qatar. It was held in Russia before. Is it held in Qatar because Qatar has such a footballing pedigree?
Obviously.
No. Obviously. No, it's fucking brown envelopes. There'd be more fucking football pedigree down the fucking park in Pompey, mate. You could get 11 random blokes.
Having lived close to Pompey, be careful how far you go here. I mean, like, I agree with you, but, let's not give them too much credit.
Mate, you could pick 11 fat blokes from Spoons who are probably in the EDL, who are fat, drinking the 99p cider, and Spoons who would do a better job. Bottom line, it was a bullshit decision. Maybe it's corrupt. I don't know. I don't want to say it is. I'm not really a conspiracy theorist. But it was a shit decision. I hope it's just because the VAR refs were two incompetent dickheads, in which case, fuck me, make me a VAR ref. I'd do a better fucking job at this point. If you need to get lines out to decide whether or not it's offside, then there's obviously not a clear advantage. The whole point of offside is to dictate whether or not a player has got an advantage by standing in an offside position. If it's fucking a quarter of his hair is offside, that's not a fucking advantage, is it?
No.
It's bullshit. Maybe it is corrupt. Maybe it is corrupt. They want to push Spurs into this position. I don't know. We should have performed in the first half. We fucking didn't. Again, don't know what Antonio Conte did to them the second half time. Maybe he slipped cocaine into their fucking tea or whatever. I don't know. Second half, whatever Conte did, Antonio, Do it again. Maybe cook them a really nice carbonara, in which case I want some of that. But again, do it again.
All right, okay. Let's try and get away from that a little bit. Let's talk about more about Spurs. I mean, Kerry makes this point here, right? Like, we didn't play well, right? What do you think the reasons were? Like, I mean, who played well in the Spurs shirt? What did we do well in the game? Was there anything?
I think Mora was kind of okay. He was making runs. He had purpose, right? Kane and Son looked a bit off it. Son was another thing. Perisic looked off it. He had there was a couple of times where he could have hit it first time, but he took too many touches and the cross wasn't great. Again, here's another thing. Why was Son on corners today when Perisic was on the pitch? Son should not be on corners when Perisic is on the pitch. I mean, again, Lucas had a couple of half chances. He's not got the best first touch, but at least he makes the runs in behind, right? And he could have scored. It was good goalkeeping in fairness by the Sporting keeper when he tried to go around him. And he hasn't played a lot, so I don't want to be harsh on Mora.
Yeah, I think it was Lucas's first start of the season.
Yeah,
which seems weird, but I guess it's true with Kulusevski and then Richarlison in that role. But I mean, do you think the 3-4-3 was have we played better than we did on Sunday when we lost to Newcastle? Did it change too much?
I think we definitely played better, right? Mm-hmm. Even in the first half when we lost to Newcastle, because at very least we had somebody making in runs behind, which is how we're going to score. We at least had that. I mean, against Newcastle, Son should have scored early on when he tried to chip it over Pope, right? But it kind of gave me flashbacks when I'm watching it, thinking that better not happen again. We better not lose 2-0, 2-1, whatever. Same result, doesn't matter.
I think Son this year has been the massive enigma because we know that he's a very good finisher on his day. We know that he can score from pretty much anywhere with either foot, and he can be a real menace. And yet we just haven't seen it that often. And is it because of the formation? Because the 3-5-2 didn't really help him either. So what is the deal with Son? Like, obviously, we've seen him in the past being able to run at defenders. He hasn't really had the chance to do that at any point. And even on the odd chance tonight when he did, he was starting wider and Perisic was kind of moving inside. And we saw that a little bit, when Bryan Hill came on, that he would cut inside as well and try to, work together with Lucas to create some overlaps. But I just think Son, he's struggling in every area. Like, his touch isn't good. He seems to be overthinking things. And I don't quite know how we're going to get out of it because we don't have any choice but to not play him with the injuries we have. But is there something we can do to try and get Son out of his funk a little bit? Like,
is he lacking confidence? It kind of seems like he's lacking confidence, right? I don't know. It's difficult because again, when Pochettino was manager, if he had a bad game, he wouldn't be in the team. He wouldn't start the next week, and then he'd come on as a sub in the 60th minute, and he'd usually do something, and then maybe he'd be back in the team. We haven't got that luxury anymore. We don't have prime or very good Dele Alli. We don't have Eriksen. We haven't got those players anymore. And Richarlison and Kulo are injured. If Richarlison and Kulo were fit, I would say, put Richarlison on the left, play Kulo on the right. Maybe he needs that. We did that against Leicester, and he came on and scored a hat-trick. I don't know. I wonder if it's a confidence thing. I wonder if he's just feeling pressure. It's difficult to quantify. But in fairness to him, he wasn't the only one who was off it. I didn't think Kane was brilliant today either, but I'm not going to knock Kane too much because he is a beautiful man who's brilliant. But it's difficult to really quantify because he's just lacking the bit of decisiveness,
I definitely feel like the pressure that he's feeling, he's putting on himself. Like, I think you can tell with Son that, like, he obviously knows he's not doing what he has been able to do. And there might be some doubts about whether he's still got it if he hasn't started the decline. I mean, he's only 30. He shouldn't have really been declining that much. And it certainly shouldn't have been as quickly as it's been. So, like, that would seem strange. But it's clear that he and Kane aren't really on the same wavelength. Teams have understood that even if Kane gets the ball, if you allow Kane to turn, he's going to look for Son, right? Especially if we've only got two up top. So the options for Kane are so limited. And we saw, there's a comment here from Aaron about Mora being better at right wing back. Well, yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. It just, that says not a great deal about Lucas Moura, sadly. But when Lucas went to right wing back, that was because Bryan Hill came on, and I've seen a few comments talking about how that Bryan might well become a bit more involved from now on because of the 20 minutes we saw from him tonight. What did you think about Bryan Hill?
One thing I will say, and I'll give credit to Conte on, is he didn't make the mistake of only making subs in the 88th minute. He did make subs a much earlier on when they still had a chance to make an impact. So I'll give Conte credit on that. He did good there. I thought, again, it almost looks like Hill wants to do 5 things at once, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he does at least show like he wants to do something. He gets the ball, he very much wants to go forward. He wants to cut inside, he wants to go wide, he wants to skill past someone. There was one moment a bit deeper where he had the ball and he faked it and he went through. He went past the player, and the Sporting player. And I thought, much better. That's the kind of direct, not even necessarily directness, but the kind of energy and purpose we need to see. Again, he didn't necessarily create a goal, score a goal or anything, but it's the kind of rawness and intensity you want to see in a player when you're chasing a game or just in any game, right? I think, maybe he's lacking a bit of that quality, but in the same way with Moura, they try to make things happen, which sometimes, and I'm sure Son is trying to make things happen. He shoots a lot. Kane is definitely trying to make things happen. I can't deny that. But it's just that bit of trickery. I thought he was okay, right? I think maybe he's warranted not necessarily a start, but he's definitely making a case for himself because he offers something different in that attack, right? I thought he was okay. I didn't think he necessarily did anything wrong. Okay, maybe he could have done maybe he could have scored a top bins goal, but you're not expecting that, right? I thought he did quite well for his cameo, and I thought, Moura looked a lot better as a right wing back because you've got Gill trying to cut inside, you've got Moura out wide. Much better than Emerson Royale, who for some reason came on when we were chasing a game. Conte, I don't understand what's going on there, mate.
I think that if we're going to stick with 3-4-3, right, for the next game at Bournemouth, which is Saturday evening, I would imagine.
4
okay, 4 o'clock. Okay. Yeah. If we're going to do that, obviously, let's say imagine Kulusevski's still out, which I think he will be. Same with Richarlison. Do you start Bryan over Lucas? Do you say, because when Lucas started tonight, I don't think he was any great shakes in that position. I don't feel like personally we would lose too much by saying to Bryan, off you go. Be as crazy as you want. You can run around for 65, 70 minutes and then we'll take you off if things are going, whatever happens. However things are going, that's going to be your role, just to be an agent of change, cause some havoc for the Bournemouth defense. Because I in that case, I would probably switch him with Son and play Son down the right and have Bryan down there, because I still think Bryan down the left, that's his natural, that's where he wants to be. There were a couple of times tonight where he'd get the ball, you knew what he was going to do. He was going to try and whip it in and create some uncertainty for the defenders, for the goalkeeper should he come. And the quality is there. It's slightly off target, but the ability is there. And one of the comments talked about how we missed chances. Dyer missed a pretty easy header with not too many minutes to go. And
two.
Yeah. And so we created enough chances just by throwing on players, really. I don't feel like there was any quality to our play. It was just we're going to put the German commentary when they saw that Longley was coming on. Obviously, the guy's never watched Spurs recently, but he came out and said that he just assumed that meant someone was going to go up top. He couldn't believe that Longley was going to come on and not and be a defender. He would have to go and do something else, or someone would have to go move forward, and he would replace that. There are probably questions about whether we needed to keep 3 centre-backs on the pitch, even if it's 1-1. Obviously, conceding would have been horrific, and a point tonight is much better than losing. We can't lose sight of the fact that now we only need a point in France to qualify. We don't need 3. But still, when Sporting have decided that they want to play, a 5-4-1 or whatever it is they had at the end, let's play 4 at the back. Let's lose one of those defenders. Romero was on the booking and was being a bit nuts. Let's get him out of the firing line and throw on somebody else. Even if it was, we could have gone 4-4-2 at various points. Like play Kane and Son up top and have Perisic and Lucas as like actual traditional wingers. That there are things we could have done, but football. I mean, it's just mental. We see that another comment here that Gill is good in tight spaces, absolutely, and the way that Spurs want to play with the ball being played forward to the front three in tight spaces, right? I mean that's what teams are doing. When Chelsea played us and they dominated against us, their centre backs were right up on Kane and Son, and I think it was Kulusevski that day made it really difficult for us. So if you've got a player who doesn't mind that, is decent, can play the right touches to get around that, then fair enough. But it's there are more questions than answers from tonight. And like, don't get me wrong, we should be through, and we should have had a dead rubber next week, and we could have played a whole bunch of kids and all the rest of it, and we don't have that, and that sucks. But I think there are more things that Spurs need to work on themselves than just to sit here and be like, well, the referee screwed us. Because as much as he did, we need to be better. We need to play a 90-minute game and not a 40-minute game. Because at the start of the second half, we weren't great either. What have we got here? Another comment from Rainer. Group D is the most chaotic. That is true. Spurs will give Marseille hell on Tuesday. Yeah, I don't know about that. We're pretty passive, Rainer. But yeah, the players and supporters will step up. I mean, obviously, I know you hope that to be the case. But yeah, it feels tonight is a massive missed opportunity. We should be through. We should have done the business, regardless of what the referees decided at the end. And yeah, like Marseille at home, they'll know they've got everything. That they'll need to win. I suppose you could say that Marseille needing to win is going to be good for Spurs, right? Because then we will be able to play somewhat on the counter. But that in itself is a dangerous thing for a team that's not playing well, and we're not playing well. Do we have anything to add to this? I feel like tonight's has been a really short show, but I just this is being a Spurs fan, right? This is what it means.
That's what I said to my mate, who again is a rugby fan, not a football fan, right? He watches England games at the Euros and the World Cup. That's his understanding of football, right? And he was like, "Oh, you should win this game." I was like, "Mate, you don't always like to be a Spurs fan." And after Sporting scored the first goal, I got up to the bar like, "Fuck me, do I need another drink?" Get another pint. And there's this Man U fan who, by the way, I'm going to be honest, lovely fella. Had a chat with him. He's from Portsmouth and he's lived in Portsmouth his whole life, so he's obviously a glory hunter. Just saying. Sorry, Lewis, mate. Seemed like a lovely fella. It's just one of those days. And when the second goal went in, again, I spilt my drink because I stood up from this chair at this pub, which, by the way, this is a really nice pub, and I'll probably watch the World Cup there. And I'm screaming my lungs out to the point where my rugby friend has to say, "All right, chill out, mate." And I fucking wrap my arm around it like, "Let's fucking go, come on!" And I see VAR review. I'm just thinking, "Oh, fuck no. It's this loud." I'm like, "Right, I'm going. See you later. I'm going. Bye-bye." It's just heartbreaking, isn't it? Had we won 2-1 tonight, had the goal been allowed, had there been no blah, blah, blah VAR, I'd be coming on here like, "Let's fucking go. Come on, you Spurs. We're going to win the Champions League." But
we still could. We still could do that.
It might be 3:00. I can't remember.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, it might be free. It probably is free. I'm doing the instant review from that game, and I'll be hosting. And I'm going out clubbing after that game. So I hope it's 3:00. That makes my life a lot easier because I'm doing pre-drinks at 7. So
as long as you're going clubbing after, you're not coming home from it to do it. I mean, you could quite easily. Being a student, why not?
I don't know of any clubs that open their doors at 5:00. So
that doesn't mean you have to come home. Stay out the Friday night and then just wander your way the streets of Portsmouth.
Been there, done that. Bought the T-shirt that smells of shame. But we're not doing that anymore. I have standards now. We're past Freshers Week, HG.
Brilliant.
We're past Freshers. Yeah. It might be 3:00. Anyway, we'll be doing a post-match review for the Bournemouth game at 5-ish.
Yeah, about 5 o'clock
sort
UK
of time. I'll be there. I'll be hosting. It'll be confirmed near the time. But after the game, check the YouTube. be me and Jack doing the post-match review, hopefully with a win. So you get to see me be happy and smiley before I go out for my pre-drinks, or I'll be having a drink during the post-match review, and I'll need to go out clubbing to get over it.
Yeah, and obviously we do have the preview show Friday night as well, where we will most likely talk about this again, because it will still be like this story is not going to die, especially because Antonio Conte got that red card. And so if he's not allowed on the bench next week in Marseille, then Spurs are being doubly punished for something that, like, I don't know what Conte did. I saw a couple of comments that he may have, called the referee a few choice words, but it's just like football means a lot. And for Conte, Conte's got a terrible record in the Champions League. So for him to have qualified after 5 games, despite the group being, not the most challenging, it would mean a lot for him and for his CV to try and get a bit of that monkey off his back. But look, before we go, and we should end it pretty soon, but this last question from Alan: are foreign officials just as bad as ours? Mate, we had a foreign official tonight. So if you watch the game, Alan, I know you're not a Spurs fan. If you watch the game, yes, foreign officials are just as bad, can be just as bad as ours.
Can I make a slightly un-PC comment? I'm going to be honest. When I was watching this game, again, my rugby friend Sam, who may be watching, so I got some of my non-football friends to watch this, so I hope they leave a like, just to watch me drunkenly complain. He turned to me in the pub and said, "That ref looks like the most German bloke I've ever seen." And he wasn't German; he was Dutch, because I googled it. But he wasn't great, was he? He really wasn't great.
No, I mean, like
Maximilian, his name. He wasn't great.
Having lived in Holland, right? I have a fair idea of what Dutch people, how they operate, who they are in general, and I think it's safe to say that Dutch people are bred to have a very high opinion of themselves, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. However, this idea of I'm in charge. My thoughts are just as important as the next person's. Doesn't matter if they've got lots of money or lots of heritage or whatever. Like I am everyone else is equal, and that it's a great thing. But in referees, maybe it's not the best thing. It's not the greatest thing for a referee to have that kind of smug, the referee tonight, when he's answering the questions from the Spurs players, could easily have said, "Well, it was VAR. It wasn't me. It was the other guys." But it's one of those weird occasions where it didn't go to the monitor because I guess there was no need if it was an obvious rule break. But yeah, that referee. I can honestly. There are people out there who look far more German than he does. But it's unfortunate. We every now and again there are going to be referees that stick in the mind of Spurs fans, and he may be one of them.
If it's clear and obvious as VAR is supposed to interpret, it shouldn't take 3 fucking minutes.
Right.
If it takes 3 minutes, look. Bottom line, and I'm going to use an analogy for this, right? You're in a club, right? You're in a nightclub. You're into a girl because she's fit. It don't take you 3 minutes to work out whether or not she's into you, right? It's clear and obvious. If she is, she's giving you the eyes. If she isn't, you move on. It don't take you 3 minutes to work out. It takes you about 10 seconds. Bottom line, if it takes you 3 minutes to work out a decision, it's not fucking clear and obvious, is it? And that's what VAR is supposed to decide. But apparently in UEFA competitions, there's a different rule from the FA. And my thing is, there should be consistent rules for all competitions. If that had been rolled out in the Premier League and in the Champions League, that's one thing, right? At least there's consistency. But there isn't the consistency. There's slightly different rules. Even with handball, there's slightly different rules in the Champions League and the Premier League. If it's clear and fucking obvious, then the lino should have dictated it, right? If it's not clear and obvious, if it's a more serious thing like a red card, dangerous play or whatever, had it been an offside in that situation, the ref should go look at it and make his own decision. If the VAR says we strongly advise you disallow this goal, but take a look at it, that's fine. But I don't think it should be the on-field decision should be overruled without the match day official on the pitch looking at it.
It seems as if the referees will stand in the middle of the pitch waiting to be told what to do, and more often than not, they're told to go to the monitor. So how about you just go to the monitor? Then you don't have to worry about players in your ear or all the rest of it that you get. Yeah, there are many things that could be improved, and that includes Tottenham Hotspur, and it's probably the best place to end it. So, for those of you that have watched this 45-minute rant on all things anti-Spurs, the anti-Spurs coalition that has taken over UEFA tonight, thanks for watching. I hope you've had a good one. I genuinely suspect that tomorrow morning somebody at UEFA is going to come out and say, yes, we got the wrong decision. They won't change anything, but they'll say it and think that somehow helps. But yeah, let's hope you get a good night's sleep. Thanks for watching. Come on, you Spurs, and we'll see you Friday night at 9 o'clock UK time.
Come on, you fucking Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.